very actionable. And that's the good news about it today. So thanks a lot, Mehdi, for your introduction. Thank you, John, a lot for having me today. I'm really honored and super hyped to lead this sustainability track along with my fellow speakers later and some people I'm working with on a daily basis. So I wanted to start briefly. Yeah, sorry, the last thing that actually we miss, I forgot to introduce myself, sorry. I'm working in climate education in general. I'm also working in decreasing the impact of technology on the planet. And that's actually, there's a reason why I'm doing these two things at the same time, because as you can see, this topic is absolutely not obvious for people. But I'm going to tell you that there are a lot of things that can be done to perform sustainability and technology at the same time. So to start with, I like to introduce the topic with a quick, it's not an icebreaker, it's more like an example. Mehdi talked a lot, just before me, talked a lot about numbers, funding, money. I'll talk about concepts. So actually, for people who hate math, it's going to be actually way easier to track. And as a climate education consultant, it's important to crystallize knowledge on easy to understand, easy to grasp kind of metaphors. So this is why you have the first example here to address the topic of dematerialization and the impact of tech on the planet. So if you compare today the impact of Louis XIV paper preparation versus a 10 kilometers hybrid SUV ride, you might wonder, what the hell is he talking about? I absolutely don't see what the point and why we should compare these two things. I'm going to simplify a bit, but if you have to prepare a Louis XIV paper, you have to do some Google requests to understand how France lost Louisiana. So it's fully ChatGPT free, as you can see. Actually, this slide, I didn't change it yesterday night to be fine-tuned with the news, but still. So to prepare your paper, you need to do some Google requests, to watch an HD documentary on YouTube, have an online briefing with your teacher on Zoom, Team, or whatever, one email with an attachment with the paper, and finally, buy 3 shirts on Lazada to celebrate your A+. Okay? Of course, it's oversimplification, but I guess you see the gist of it. And if you compare this with a 10-kilometer ride in a hybrid SUV, I will cut the suspense, but actually, the Louis XIV paper is higher in terms of carbon footprint. Our carbon footprint is the key metrics companies are using to calculate the impact, capital I, okay? For those who are a bit aware of sustainability topics, yes, it's only a portion of the problem. But when I'm working with companies on a daily basis, you have to speak their language. And the language of companies today when you talk sustainability is CO2, is carbon emissions. So you got to give them what they want, right? So this is why I have this approach of life cycle, cradle to grave, in a way, to calculate the carbon footprint of your technology. One last thing before deep diving into this concept. Why are we talking about IT sustainability? Because you might be wondering, I think we have other problems in the world like construction, food waste, or transportation. Yes, it's very true, but actually 4% of greenhouse gas emissions worldwide are due to digital, to technology today, which is, by the way, almost twice as much as aviation worldwide. So we are talking about something not insignificant. One last thing about that, the trend is extremely frightening. We have double-digit trends every year, and we expect this number to double by 2 to 3 years. So are we going to wait until it's too late to do things? That's the topic, and that's the spirit, and that's why I'm doing education on this topic, to actually leverage, to have companies understand there is something to address, and that a lot of solutions are at hand. We'll talk about these solutions at the end. So this cradle-to-grave approach is actually made of trying to take a step back and understanding the impact, the life of a device. It's not the most perfect approach, but I can tell you this one encompasses a lot of things, and you can actually, you won't miss a lot of things. The life of a device is actually easy to see or to evaluate. You start with the manufacturing part, you have the usage, you have the obsolescence, and you finally have the end of life, the recycling. I'm going to use now one metaphor, one concept to represent each time what I'm talking about. So first one, manufacturing. So to manufacture this little guy here, we need a lot of things, a lot, okay? Roughly 70 to 75% of the impact of technology is based on the manufacturing portion, all right? So first thing I like to say when I'm doing these kind of workshops or this kind of talks, don't worry about watching Netflix if you are buying 2 smartphones a year. Okay, address the bigger problem first. And the bigger problem is addressing the manufacturing of laptops and smartphones, for instance, end user devices. You have the example here of my Mac that is not working today, sadly, but my Mac pretty much represents only on the manufacturing part 200 kilograms of CO2, 600 kilograms of mineral extracted from the earth crust, and finally 2 tons of fresh water. That's what we call the ecological backpack. Actually, it encompasses the 360 impact of an equipment. You might be like, I don't even know what this represents, or I don't even know if it's a lot. 200 kilograms of fossil fuels is the equivalent of a flight between Singapore and Hong Kong. Okay, we are talking about big numbers here. Second part, usage. Usage is actually all over the news. Data centers are the bad guys. We use a lot of energy for Bitcoin, etc., for crypto mining. Okay, great. Actually, the real bad guy here is not so much about the emails or the storage, it's about the video. 80% of the global traffic worldwide is made on video. I'm not going to give you the full breakdown. You have everything that you can imagine. You have Zooms, Teams, etc., video conferences stuff. You have streaming. You also have something that is actually more fun and doesn't give a lot of faith in humanity, but you have porn. 20% of the traffic, video traffic online is made of porn, for instance. I know that you will all leave the door remembering this. But it's actually important to see that the problem of usage is not so much about things we do, it's about video mostly. We shifted from a writing content, written content civilization to a video-based content, a video content-based civilization. And we can thank social media for that. They popularized that. I might sound a bit harsh, but I'm not blaming anyone. If actually, once social media started to allow this feature to upload video on social media, the first guys were, by the way, Facebook. If they didn't do this, if they hadn't do it, somebody would have done it on their behalf afterwards. So it's not about finding who's to blame. The idea is to say, now we know this, what can we do? Okay. Another important concept that I really like is the Moore's law. I think a lot of you might know here. Actually, I always want to talk about this graph when I do workshops, but it's a bit too technical in general, so I'm very happy today to show it to you because I know you guys will understand. So the Moore's law is actually a representation on a graph of the performance and of the capacity of our processes, all right? When we talk about obsolescence, what we have in mind is basically to have something that is hard to repair, that, for instance, if I smash it on the ground, it's broken. That's actually hardware obsolescence. You also have software obsolescence. I think most of you are extremely aware of what it is, operating system updates, etc. Apple is a nightmare for that, by the way. And then you have psychological obsolescence, Lazada, 1111, 77, pushing you for additional purchases all the time. But actually, Moore's law is very representative of another thing that is basically that optimization that we manage to gain from our technology is not driven for energy saving, but for additional performance. That's something that we call rebound effect. Instead of using the gains of optimization that we have for equal delivery, equal service for less energy, we actually consider that we spend this energy in any case, so let's increase the performance. That's more tricky, but that's the key problem of obsolescence today. And finally, something you will probably live with because It's quite, it's a powerful image. What about recycling? What about end of life? Now we are in the grave. What happens with the things we are actually no longer using? I have a few numbers that I could give you, and if you are interested, we can talk about that during the panel after. But roughly, worldwide, we have 54 million tons of electronic waste due to end-user devices. That represents roughly 170 cargo ships in the Singapore Bay. So that's actually quite a lot. But the problem, I mean, some of you might tell me, but Thibaut, you just have to recycle everything. And then, gone, no more problem. So the apple tart theorem will actually show you that it's slightly more complicated than this. So how is it working? Let's take the example of an apple pie. If you want to cook an apple pie, an apple tart, you need ingredients. You need to combine these ingredients, and at the end, you need to cook them, use electricity, an oven, etc., and you have a wonderful tart. Now, if at the end of the cooking session, I'm asking you to give me back the ingredients the way they used to be, good luck with that. Okay, you got the problem of recycling. We cannot recycle things because we don't have things that are designed to be recycled. For various reasons, we have what we call dispersion. So for instance, the coating of a car, coating of a laptop is impossible to be recycled today. Impossible. Second one, low ROI. Where's my money? Actually, it's non-profitable today to recycle. And finally, the fact that everything is miniaturized and complexified. We mingle so many things inside that we are creating a monster that we cannot recycle. In a laptop, in a normal laptop, sorry if I bring you back terrible memories from high school, but in your laptop you have the equivalent, you have half of the periodic table. Remember this traumatizing physics and chemistry thing you had with helium, hydrogen, lithium, etc. About half of that table is in your laptop. And that makes the whole thing impossible to recycle. So I've been a bit harsh on technology in general, but actually I just want to mention that it's neither black or white, it's slightly more complicated than this. We can use technology for amazing purposes. Okay, I'm not saying that we need to go back to candlelight, absolutely not. But before asking ourselves or deploying projects focused on high tech and technology in general, we have to wonder what for. Why are we even doing this? Yesterday, when I was thinking of my opening, I wanted actually to mention one of the examples. In my previous life, I worked in consulting, and I worked for a number of projects that had they were making no sense in terms of sustainability. I was basically developing a doppelganger app for an HR company, while I perfectly knew that the other team, 20 meters away from them, already had it. I wish I had somebody like me today to tell me, dude, you shouldn't be doing this kind of thing because it's not very logical. So before actually we deploy tech, it's important to ask ourselves the right questions. And I think it will vibe a lot with what Aman will talk about later. It's about crafting another kind of mindset. And this question that can actually, you can wonder are, of course, to wonder with whether there is good tech or not. I think this one, the answer is clear. No, there is no good tech or bad tech. The critical question of I can, but should I? It's not because you can deliver something that you should do it. What are the scopes of our emission? What are the extents of my carbon footprint? What is my supply chain? What is my value chain? When I craft, for instance, a laptop, who am I even impacting 10,000 kilometers away from me? An important topic that is actually related to IT sustainability is the fact that dematerialization removed, in a way, the responsibility of our actions. Now, when I buy actually a smartphone like this, do I see in my backyard the impact of the extraction needed for that? No. I'm pretty sure that if we had in our backyard the visualization of the impact to produce this, we wouldn't buy a new laptop every year or a new smartphone every year. Dematerialization is just materialization elsewhere. And we are very lucky to have a few countries who are okay to do this dumping for us. When they're going to say no, we'll have a few problems actually. And the last question that is really critical, it's about wondering about the rebound effect. Remember the Moore's law? How should we use our optimization gains? Should we really use them for additional performance? By the way, do we need more performance? It's an open question. And also, can we use this for proper sobriety, proper savings? And we can. It's just a choice of technology drive. I mean, we just need to choose that. And to do this, I mean, there is no silver lining. There is no silver bullet. It's just using common sense, take a step back, adopt a project-oriented mindset, and have a 360 vision of the things we want to deliver. It's not because you read an article about whatever technology the day before that is relevant in your acute case study. I'm sorry. Most of the time it's not, by the way. 90%, I'm pretty sure, of blockchain case studies would be solved with a good Excel document. And my startup that I co-founded that I missed, it didn't work out. It's because I thought I needed something fancy and a good Excel document would have worked. It was a very good life lesson. And I encourage you to think about this one. Now, why are companies deciding to move to IT sustainability? To be completely transparent, governments are very tiptoeing at the moment on this topic. We are in a country, Singapore, where this topic starts to be taken seriously for reasons that you may know. We have a lot of data centers in Singapore, so it's an energy problem to keep in mind. But actually, companies are moving faster than governments. Why that? Probably because people and mindset are shifting. Also because we reached maturity. Now we know the impact of things, and we have the tools and the technical maturity to evaluate this impact, which wasn't the case when I started to study this 4 years ago. And, which is the most important, we have target alignment. More and more pressure from external stakeholders to drive to lesser carbon footprint, and you can deliver these objectives of carbon footprint reduction through a few actions that I will show you. I can show you a few ones just after. But the fact that you have these 3 criteria, these 3 factors, are pushing companies on that topic. And now imagine the impact if regulations were following. That's the thing. Now, what can a software engineering team do? I just share with you a few ideas that I give when I go to companies. I actually have a lot of things to do. I didn't mention the cradle-to-grave approach and the cradle-to-grave solutions. We sadly we only have 20 minutes. However, as a software engineering team, you have a lot of low-hanging fruits, really. The power of IT sustainability, or digital footprint, is the fact that all the solutions are at hand. You just need to deploy them. It's not like changing your business model. You're a shipment company. It's going to take, it's very hard to change your business model. It's very hard to shift entirely like air to sea shipment. Oh God, it's a lot of work. IT sustainability, you have 100, 150 best practices that you can start tomorrow. You won't decrease by 50% your carbon footprint, but I can tell you, you will be able to show you have some progress in this field. And what is the main problem I'm facing when I'm talking to companies in general, when I consult them and when I'm doing my workshops, etc., is I want to do things, but how much CO2 am I going to save? Because that's going to be the KPI my boss will put pressure on me. It's either money or carbon footprint. Good news, IT sustainability can deliver both. Money saving, because it's just using common sense, and most of the time, a lot of carbon footprints, on the tech side at least. Of course, if you're a manufacturing company, your IT infrastructures will be rather probably less than 1%. So maybe you should address other things first, but for tech companies, the impact is tremendous. So reviewing a few solutions here, deploy software eco-design, maybe that's something that resonates with you guys, maybe that's something you experienced already. You have tons of best practices to design your architectures and your softwares in an eco-design way. I'm going to tell you, the impact is not huge, but it's super amazing for HR empowering in companies because people feel they belong to a bigger project and they feel like they are doing something about sustainability, which sometimes is a bit hard to track. You can use, of course, greener habits on websites. This is why we have one of the speakers, Ian, who will talk about a lot about that, like the website part and the web app part. And Yep, sorry for this one, but I had to put it, frugality versus efficiency. Again, changing and shifting the mindset is going to be key. We need to change the approach of the way we are looking at technology, and Aman will actually, just after me, will focus a lot on this mindset shifting, which is absolutely key. And it's really about awareness and realizing a lot of things can be done, deployed to any individual level, collectivity level, but also, of course, company level, because that's the people I'm talking to most of the time. So I'm done. I think I'm right on time. 2 minutes early. That's the first time I'm early on a talk. So thanks a lot. If you want to reach out, you can actually reach out to me for anything, for any questions, for any. We do with people in this room. We do a lot of public workshop awareness for these topics, not only but also for these topics. So if you're interested, feel free to reach out. I will reply, probably late, but I will always reply to you. Thanks a lot.